everyone. In this video, we are going to talk about how you should structure the literature review in a journal article. If you're writing a journal article that is following the quantitative causal method, this is the kind of a typical literature review style that we follow in the journals mostly. So let's have a look at the structure that we would follow. We'll start with the description of the main topic of the study. Then we'll go on towards the definition of the constructs or the variables that we're using. Then we'll discuss the theory. After that, we'll talk about the hypothesis development, and then last but not the least, present your conceptual framework. So when you're describing the main topic of your study, make sure that you mention the seminal study from where it all began. It's more like you're narrating a story, you're telling like how it all started, then you're talking about how this topic evolved in the literature. It's not necessary that you talk about each and every study within the literature, but maybe the main transitions or main important studies that happened, like a couple of them, 3, 4, 5, whatever numbers you think would cover the depth of the evolution of that topic. Then we'll go on to the current state of literature, something that has happened recently. And when you're closing this area, you would mention what are the gaps. These gaps would be in line with the problem statement that you have mentioned in the introduction of your study. Basically, the gaps that we're mentioning here, these are theoretical gaps that you would be highlighting in the literature. Now, moving on, we'll give the definitions of the variables that we're using within this study. Make sure that you're using the definitions that match the scales or the questions that you have included in your questionnaire. This is one of the biggest review remarks that a lot of people get when they're submitting their articles, that the definition that you have given in the study does not match the type of questions that you have included in your questionnaire or in your scale. So please make sure that these two match. The good idea would be that you take the definition and the questions from one study. Now, moving on, that you have to have an underpinning theory. Still now, even now, if you're using a deductive study, your reviewers would want you to have an underpinning theory. Although there is a school of thought that says that if you have support for all the hypotheses that are included in your study, you don't need a particular underpinning theory, but still we have one school of thought that says, no, if you don't have an underpinning theory, your paper is not legitimate. So it's up to you whether you would want to have this section or not. Now, justify why the theory that you have selected is the most suitable theory to explain the relationship among the variables that you have. For example, if you're talking about purchase intention, there can be several theories that can go along with it. There can be TPB, there can be TRA, there can be theory of reasoned actions, that is TRA actually, and there can be consumer value theory. There can be many other theories that can explain the relationship, but why did you choose this one particular theory? You have to justify that within this area. Then moving on, you have to explain how your variables set within the theory that you have selected, what role each variable is playing. For example, if you look at consumer value theory, it has 4 values: utilitarian value, that hedonic value, social value, and then value for money. So if you have some variables that are not exactly same as the values that you have included in this theory, then you have to tell that what role is one variable playing as in terms of the values that we have within that theory. Moving on, we go on to the final step, and very crucial and very important step, hypothesis development. One by one, discuss that how one variable is related to the other variable. Start with the direct relationships, build the argument, build the reason that how variable A has a positive or a negative influence on the variable B. Then move on towards the mediation. When you're talking about the mediation, your focal point should be that how this one variable intervenes the relation between the two variables. Some people go with the approach of serial causation. However, some people discuss it with the approach of having a focus on the intervention of this one variable within the effect of the two variables. Then go on and discuss like how the moderation is playing its role. Each of these sections would be given separate headings, and for each path, I would say you would have a separate heading and a separate paragraph. And how long this section would be, it all depends on the complexity and the intensity of your conceptual framework. Last but not the least, present the conceptual framework. It puts the reader in perspective. If you have your conceptual framework, make sure that you're representing your constructs with a spherical shape, oval or a circle. It's kind of a representation that it's a construct. It's not a observed variable, and use arrows to connect the ovals that you have within your conceptual framework. Label the paths with a positive and negative sign, the way I have this minus VE and plus VE. Put these little words on the paths that you have so that you can argue that this is a directional hypothesis. If you do not have negative or positive sign on the path, it means that the model is non-directional. So make sure you have all these components in your literature review. Hope you like this video. Please click on subscribe so that you don't miss any further videos. Hope to see you in the next video soon.